I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for July the 21st, local time in the West Pacific 2023. As is always the case in these videos, the thoughts expressed here are mine alone, and when making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclone, look towards your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So we're really going to be focusing primarily on 98W today. We really aren't going to be talking about any other system, as this system is a significant typhoon threat for lots of land areas getting into this weekend and into next week. Now, the current look of the system, it has improved over the past couple of days. You can see on infrared look, it is a bit difficult to pick out the general low-level flow, but on infrared we can sort of get a semblance of some southeasterly winds on the northeastern side. Those wrap around to northeasterlies on the western side. And we can see a semblance over here of these trying to wrap around into the convection like that. And this generally gets the idea of maybe an area of low pressure right about here on the western end of the convection. Now this is a little bit displaced from all the deep convection, though we are seeing in recent frames, you can see there lots of convection blowing up over this center of where I estimate the actual center of circulation to be. So this is a fairly favorable look, and this system, it might be close to being a tropical cyclone. We haven't had a high pass or an ASCAT pass in quite a while. This is the last one that actually hit the storm. This was way earlier, probably last night local time, and you can see this had a general broad circulation still, but we need an ASCAT pass now to see how has this developed over the past several hours. How is it organized? Has this convection helped it organize more? And I imagine it has. And given this look, with the center of circulation being centered generally there and looking more circular overall than it did, say, a couple days ago, I'd say it probably has gotten much better, and it might as well be close to a tropical cyclone by now. Going to be one in a very short amount of time anyways. Now here is the track guidance for the ensembles. This is a GFS ensembles, and I'm showing you this first because we have had a significant shift since my last video a couple days ago. The shift has been today and yesterday, a more northerly solution overall with 98W. Now the GFS continues to show a very far easterly and northerly track. You can see it actually has the ensemble mean now going through the southern Japanese islands and even into South and North Korea. Now the CMC is still relatively the same. It has shifted maybe a little bit further north than last time, but this has stayed fairly steady on its idea of where 98W will track, and you can see it going towards the southern Japanese islands and Taiwan. And the European, this has been a significant shift for the European model. Well, we've seen a lot more ensembles today and yesterday shift towards the idea of the system coming up towards, say, the CMC route or the GFS route. You can see the GFS route here on the red line and the CMC track in the yellow line there. So we've seen that significant shift today and yesterday. Now, as this is a shift northward, I do issue a word of caution to those in the Philippines. Don't look at this immediately and say that your threat is all over. This can easily shift back south. We've seen that happen various times in tropical cyclone tracks. This is still several days out. There's a lot of uncertainty here. So lots of things can still change. But the good news is we have seen a lot of trends today take this system more north, at least for the Philippines. That's bad news for areas further north. Now, this is a track guidance. This is off of more statistical guidance, but you can see the general envelope here has more of a middle ground between the GFS and the European models, taking it, say, from northern Luzon to the southern Japanese islands with Taiwan in between. And if I were to make a forecast cone on this, this is probably the track that I would follow here, because something to take into consideration with the European and GFS models is they each have their own set of biases with ridging up north. The European has a bias to have ridges in general a little bit stronger than they actually would turn out to be. Sometimes it can be right, of course, but it does tend to do that. It will tend to have a stronger ridge than is actually going to happen. So you get, in cases like this, more southerly tracks on the storm. Now, the European has been shifting a little bit further north, even on its parent runs. You can see the significant shift on the ensemble, but this is still pretty far south. on the parent model. Now, the GFS has a bias to underdo ridges at times. Of course, like the European, it can be right sometimes, but it can tend to be very weak with ridges overall. And you can see this overall weak ridge here keeps the system tracking far east of the Philippines. You can see each of these frames are 4 days out on the model. This is Monday evening local time. And you can see the significant shift because of this ridge up north. You can see the GFS has a ridge more positioned to the east of 98W, which tries to push it more north than west, while the European still has a very strong ridge up north that stops it from coming north really at all, and it just keeps it moving northwest. Now, as I've said several times, I think the CMC and other models like the CMC, like with the statistical guidance, is a better place to look for overall track. I say a middle ground between these two models when considering their biases towards ridging is a good call for a forecast cone. You can see the CMC is generally in the middle, maybe leaning more towards the GFS's idea, but you can see it's in between the two models. Now, this is what the JMA has done. They have their forecast cone out now. Pagasa does not have this as a tropical depression. I'd imagine soon they will, and we'll get their ideas on it. But you can see, regardless of the shifts that we've seen today and yesterday further north, we still have a significant portion of the Philippines in the potential track cone. Now, remember that this is a track cone as well. Impacts will stretch far from the center of circulation. So even if this system tracks offshore the Philippines, you can still get some adverse impacts. But you can see their general track envelope following that general middle ground between the European and GFS. Of course, it is possible that this system stays more northerly and more easterly and comes towards the southern Japanese islands and maybe heads to points further north. It's also possible that this system stays a little bit further west, perhaps a little bit further south as well, and it comes through the Philippines and perhaps into the South China Sea. Where it goes then, we don't know. That's very far out. But the general consensus today is that we're looking for areas from, say, Luzon to Taiwan and the southern Japanese islands most likely to get at least some sort of impacts from this storm. Now, in terms of conditions, here's the GFS 200 millibar flow, and you can see the general pattern aloft. You can see there's a trough here. This is that upper level low. I can't remember if I showed you the water vapor loop, but there's an upper level low here in the water vapor loop you can see over the Mariana Islands. This is helping some of the outflow onto the eastern side, and we'll also see some increasing equatorward outflow on the southern side of the circulation. And you can see that in the GFS with that equatorward outflow with the upper level low enhancing some of the easterly, or would be more westerly, outflow. That's pretty favorable divergent flow, and the shear overall is not too strong. If I get a sounding over the system, you can see the shear mean or averaged out is about 11 knots here. So it's not very strong at all, and the system will easily be able to fend that off. And you can see the European showing this general pattern as well. There's the upper level low, and you've got all that divergence aloft away from the storm. Maybe even some divergence more towards the southwest as well. And if I get a sounding from the European, you'll see the same general picture. Though this is also a little bit further west. You can see there are a few differences in the overall shear. It's actually lower on the European, perhaps because it's a little bit further west. We'll have to see if that pans out. But also, oceanic conditions are very favorable. I'm going to mark this with blue because it's going to be red on red, and that's not going to be easy to see. But that's the center of Invest 98W. And if I go to sea surface temperatures, you can see sea surface temperatures at 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. Oceanic heat content is very high. Now, of course, track as well does depict or depend on what happens here. If it takes the track more like the JMA, which seems more likely, it will be over higher oceanic heat content for a longer period of time. But if it takes a track like the GFS, it will be over, still pretty high oceanic heat content, but for not nearly as long, and it does cool down or get more shallow as you go further north. So there's still a lot of uncertainty here, but we are still talking about a significant storm here, and we're getting to that time now where we've got forecast cones out on this. This has been talked about for about a week now, and the most important thing for those to do, regardless of what track happens here on the modeling over the next several days in the Philippines, say from points southern Luzon, points north towards Taiwan and the southern Japanese islands. Make sure you monitor this very closely. Stay tuned to the Japan Meteorological Agency. If you're in the Philippines, stay tuned to Bagasa and stay tuned to your local weather offices all over the place. And have your typhoon preparedness kit ready. This system is looking to be a significant typhoon as it comes through here. Now, the good news is after this, we may be in a little bit of a quieter period. There is some guidance depicting maybe another stronger storm out further east, but that's way far out right now, and we'll worry about that if it comes later down the line. But again, Luzon, points further north up towards Taiwan and southern Japanese islands. Prepare. Now this is your time to prepare and listen to local emergency management, as they'll have the best information ahead of the storm. And of course have future uploads this weekend and next week as the system continues tracking through the Western Pacific. But stay safe, everybody, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching.